So the first interaction that we have with clients is they're ordering our at-home assessment kit. Inside that kit is a small device that they attach to their arm. All they have to do is press a little button, and a very small lance will make an incision on the skin and begin pulling blood from the capillaries. From that sample, we're doing almost 24 blood tests. Once that happens, the clinical team has a chance to review it. And from there, you'll have a conversation with the clinician, and they will tell you what you could be doing to optimize your hormones. From there, we are going to automatically send assessment kits so that we can get a look at your blood every 3 months for the first year. And the reason we do that is we want to actually make sure that it's having the impact that we want. So we're going to look at it again every 3 months, and they're going to continue to optimize you. That's all included when you become a Wellcore customer.
Awesome. I'm live with Jason Whitson, co-founder and CEO of Wellcore, and Ryan Lester, physician assistant at Wellcore. It's awesome to have you here, guys.
Thanks for having us, John.
Yeah, likewise, John.
Yes, we were chatting a little bit before we went live about me trying the Wellcore product, or at least the testing assessment that you recently, I think you recently launched. And in order to test my hormone levels, my testosterone as a man, important stuff, it's definitely becoming a little bit more mainstream in terms of the conversation around male hormones and the need to optimize them. But I'm going to allow both of you to do a quick introduction on yourselves and what you're building at Wellcore, and then we'll dive deeper from there.
All right, do some short intros. As John said, my name is Jason Whitson, co-founder and CEO over here at Wellcore. And what we're building over here is a complete personal optimization platform. And what we're starting with is hormone optimization for men and women that's done at home in a painless, personalized, convenient way.
You want to tell them about yourself a bit?
No, we're doing intros.
Oh, okay. Well, Ryan Lester, physician assistant. I work on the clinical team at Wellcore, providing clinical oversight, creating the protocols, recruiting clinicians, training them, innovating on some of our fun tech in that space.
Great. And how did Wellcore come to be?
Yeah, so Wellcore is a portfolio company of a group in town called Redbud Brands. Redbud Brands operates as a venture studio, and they generate or take in ideas. They go and vet them, and eventually bring in teams to build them and fund them. Wellcore was a bit unique. We're not a consumer packaged goods brand like the rest of the portfolio. We're obviously healthcare, and the founders, the co-founders of Redbud, were interested in this space, and they found myself and my co-founder Bill Peebles, who's not here with us today, and we hit it off right off the bat because I was actually building something similar in the mobile wellness space, and we all sort of saw the signals. To your point earlier, John, about hormone optimization becoming a bit more mainstream. And what we realized is that there were several like-minded individuals that had built something extremely similar to this in the past. So teaming up with Redbud was a way for us to just accelerate it, which is what we've been doing for about a year and a half.
Nice. Anything you want to add there, Doc? I guess I can call you Dr. Ryan, but my wife is a nurse practitioner, so I've gotten very familiar with the world of PAs and NPs, and you guys do a lot like doctors. So I'm just going to call you Ryan, but yeah. Ryan, anything you want to add there?
No, I think we'll dive into the good stuff here in a bit.
Great. Yeah. So this idea of hormone optimization, you hear people like Joe Rogan talking about it. You hear folks, neuroscientists and wellness enthusiasts or thought leaders like Huberman talking about it. But this idea of actually getting to test at home and then get treatment through telehealth is pretty new. some emerging brands in the space. Uh, I mentioned at the top of the call that I've recently tried the testing part. Could you take us through the journey? You send this kit to folks at home, they test in a relatively painless way. What do they learn from there? And then what is Wellcore prescribing or offering from there?
Yeah, so everything we do has to start with understanding what's going on in your body. And for us, that means getting a blood sample. So the first interaction that we have with clients is that they're ordering our at home assessment kit that we like to call practically painless because it is. Um, they place an order on our website. It's a typical e-com experience. They'll get that kit in 3, 4, maybe 5 days. And then inside that kit is a small device that they attach to their arm. And all they have to do is press a little button, and a very small lance will make an incision on the skin and begin pulling blood from the capillaries. And that device is capable of holding 600 microliters of blood, whole blood. So we're not talking about finger pricks that are super painful that you're just putting on a dry blood spot. And we're not sending people to labs to have needles put in their arms. Um, from that sample, we're able to derive nearly 2 dozen what are called analytes. Easiest way to say it is we're doing almost 2 dozen blood tests. And the data that comes back from that lands in our electronic health record system. Once that happens, the clinical team has a chance to review it, and they'll reach out to you and say that it's time to schedule a consultation, which is included with the kit. And the consultation will happen a lot like what we're doing right now. It's 100% virtual, so it's telemedicine. And from there, you'll have a conversation with the clinician, and they will tell you what you could be doing to optimize your hormones. And it's not a good fit for everybody. Somebody might come through and they're not experiencing the symptoms of hormone imbalances, and they might be just fine, and they'll effectively walk away with some numbers that they can use to help inform decisions down the road. Um, for those that are a good fit for protocol, and today we're live with the male service. The female service is coming in Q2. For the guys, the most important hormone in our body is testosterone, and over time, nature slowly takes that away from us. Our body literally stops producing as much as it did in the past, and the impacts of that kind of sneak up on you. A lot of folks may not realize that what they're feeling, tired, poor sleep, the accumulation of body fat, you're not able to put on lean muscle anymore, things like sexual desire and sexual function, the things we call aging. They don't realize it until, they're in their late 30s, 40s, or 50s when they decide to do something about it. Um, but once you get your numbers back, and if you get on protocol, with the guys, you're injecting testosterone. We have creams as options. We're actually fans. I believe we prefer the injection for efficacy and just ease of use, which that sounds counterintuitive. It's like, isn't a cream easier? But the number of times that you have to apply it, where you have to apply it, and the fact that it can transfer to other things, like it's just kind of a pain. So with injections, we knew we needed to address the fact that needles could scare people because it is self-administered. It's done at home. So we've partnered with a company that makes an auto inject device that handles most of the work for you and maintains that practically painless experience all the way through to injection. Um, from there, we are going to automatically send assessment kits so that we can get a look at your blood every 3 months for the first year. And the reason we do that is we want to actually make sure that it's having the impact that we want, we as in the clinical team, and that you're looking for. So we're not putting you on meds and then saying, good luck, have a nice life. You're going to get kits, blood collection kits. We're going to look at it again every 3 months, and they're going to continue to optimize you. And that's all included in what we do. I mean, one of our principles is that the only way to do things is the right way, and comprehensive preventative care, which is effectively what we're doing, is included when you become a Wellcore customer.
And how much does it cost?
For the men and the women, because we wanted the pricing to be the same, even though the uh, the medications and the way that they're applied, the mechanisms are slightly different. It's $225 a month, and it's billed quarterly. So you're going to get a 90-day supply of everything when you work with us. So just like if you go to a pharmacy and end up with a 90-day supply, you pay for the 90-day supply. Um, and the kits are all inclusive too. So we everything we do is meant to be high end and premium. We want everybody to feel like they're getting the kind of service that typically was only available to, the rich, the famous, and the elite. Our packaging is an aluminum box that has a handle and locks on it. And inside is die cut foam, and every single item that you need for your program is neatly placed in there with an easy to understand instruction set. Um, and like I said, from there, you've got access to our clinical team, and we're there to continue optimizing as long as you're a client.
Cool. So let's un well, I was going to say unravel, but that's not really the right word. Let's take apart that unpackage that journey. So in the first part, you are getting some blood samples. What are you learning from those? What are optimal levels or average levels? And yeah, let's start there.
Okay. So with that assessment kit, I mentioned the nearly 2 dozen tests that are performed. There's no better person in the room to go through some of those than Ryan. Uh, but I will quickly speak to the levels part. So clinically low testosterone in men means that your levels have fallen below the number 300, 300 nanograms per
Per
microliter,
deciliter. Yep.
deciliter. That number is somehow supposed to apply to every man in the United States, which, when you think about it, is a little bit silly because we're all different. You could feel the symptoms associated with low, suboptimal testosterone levels way before you get to 300. So when people talk about their number, clinically low is 300. But that is one of the big numbers that is derived from the test that we do. But Ryan can definitely speak to some of the tests.
Yeah. So aside from total and free testosterone, we're also looking at kidney function, liver function, cholesterol. We have a couple analytes that give us an indication if somebody's at risk for prediabetes or blood glucose dysregulation. Um, and then we also have thyroid biomarkers. Um, yeah, that includes everything. And then, sorry, and then aside from testosterone, we're also looking at the hormones that come from the brain that stimulate the testes to produce testosterone, and the other sex hormones like estrogen. Um, yeah.
And Ryan, given what I said earlier, PAs, NPs, they specialize in different areas of the health journey. How did you land at Wellcore? What's your background and experience that sort of got you to be the person here that's speaking on this podcast, for example, on the clinical side?
Yeah, so I graduated from school in 2009 from Rochester Institute of Technology in Western New York. At that point, I started working at in the ER, in the emergency room, at a level 1 trauma center up there. Did that for a couple years, and then decided I wanted to move into surgery. So started working for another big hospital in the area, doing orthopedic surgery, covering an inpatient team, working with about 20 surgeons there. Really developed general orthopedic surgery skills, which was great. Wanted to move south into some warmer weather. So in 2012, I moved to Austin and linked up with an awesome orthopedic surgeon here, and we specialized in joint replacement, so hip and knee replacements. I did that for 8 years and kind of just burned out of the sick care machine. Um, I found myself seeing so many patients every day, injecting cortisone, 10, 15 times a day into knees. And these people were morbidly obese, and I didn't even have 5 minutes to talk to them about their nutrition or their sleep or exercise. And I've always been a bit of a biohacker, and health optimization's always been important to me, and was a passion. So just kind of got frustrated with it and just said, I didn't sign up for this. I didn't want to continue with it. So I started looking at ways to join innovative companies that were kind of pursuing a paradigm shift in how healthcare is delivered. And I kind of squirmed around for a while, didn't find much. And then I went to a biohacking conference here in Austin, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And one of the last speakers of the day was a guy by the name of Daniel Stickler. He's a physician, and he was with a company named Apeiron, and who's here in Austin. And he was talking about they have an epigenetic coaching academy, and I had never heard of that. And went up and talked to him, and he explained what epigenetics was, and um, it's essentially how the external environment from second to second influences gene expression. So the exercise you do, the supplements you ingest, the food you eat can change gene expression. So I kind of researched it, and a year later joined the academy. And then he said, on our intro call, hey, we're going to be moving to Austin and opening a flagship center, and we're looking for a PA, and would you like to join? And so I joined the team, and they also have a medical center, a medical side that they see clients privately. So I joined that, and a big part of that program, aside from epigenetics, is hormone optimization. And so I kind of started to learned from him. He's one of the best at what he does, um, and did that for a few years, and then found Wellcore, trying to do this telemedicine hormone optimization service, and it all came together at the right time. And so I've been with Wellcore now 18 months building this thing, and we're excited to get it started.
Super cool. And Jason, could we do a quick double click on your background and sort of you've been open on LinkedIn. I've seen, sort of talking about your personal experience with uh, hormone optimization. So could you give us a little bit of context as to how and why the message and the mission of Wellcore was important to you when you encountered Redbud and they were working on this venture?
Yeah, it was a confluence of events and experience for sure. I mean, professionally, I've been a product and tech guy since the 90s. I've done everything from, you know, building supercomputers for Wall Street to solving problems for the Department of Defense, to, building apps in the human performance space, telemedicine, even experiential retail. But outside of work in my private life, I've always been an athletic person, a competitive athlete. And in my mid 20s, so early 2000s, I was at the gym working out just like any other day. The only real difference for this day is I was trying to put on a few LBs because I was going to try out for a semi pro football team. And the fastest way for me to gain a little bit of weight was to work the legs. And, I was a lot bigger back then, and I would warm up with some pretty heavy weight. And I made a mistake on the squat rack that day, and L5S1, the bottom disc in my back, was effectively cut in half. Um, and when that happens, it's looking to exit the spine for me, posterior side. I lost the use of my legs. I was still standing, but I couldn't walk. So I had to get some help from a roommate who happened to be there, carry me to the car, carry me into the apartment, carry me to the bed. Um, and I stayed there for several weeks, avoiding, going to a doctor because I used to work for a group of spine surgeons and I knew what had happened and I didn't want to know, what was next. So I did avoid surgery and I went the route of, physical therapy, and some alternative treatments, a lot of manipulation. So think myopractor is a term, where they kind of put Humpty Dumpty back together. So I'm on the rebound trying to come back, and you know, I noticed that there are other parts of my mind and body that haven't followed. So I sort of lost that drive that I had for work because I loved my job at the time. Um, I couldn't compete in any sort of sport. I couldn't be athletic. And as embarrassing as it might sound, in your mid 20s, there were, uh, depression issues and maybe even some sexual problems. When the latter half of your body shuts down for that long period of time and it's not coming back, it was alarming. So I went to a doctor and, they did a litany of tests and, some of them were blood tests. And it came back that my hormone levels were that of a 65-year-old man. And I said, great, what are hormones? I had no idea. So I got educated really quickly on what they were and how they impacted overall health and wellness. And I got on a TRT, so just a testosterone replacement program all the way back then. And within weeks, I was on the rebound. I was coming back. I was feeling like, Jason in his mid 30s. And from there, I would go on and off protocol every now and then because there was something inside me that didn't like the idea of being on a medication. Um,
Mhm.
but every time I would go off, my back pain would come back and I just didn't feel as good. Like all around, I just didn't feel as good. So I would go back on. And the last time I went off was when I discovered bikes, like bicycles. I had torn an ACL playing football, and I bought a bike to rehab, and I found out I could race people. And as I met people in that community, I found out that hormone replacement therapy and racing bikes do not mix. It's not allowed. So I didn't want to be that guy because the community was very, uh, they had a very rigid stance on that. I mean, rules are rules. So I went off protocol for 4, 5 years and suffered because of it. Um, Luckily, I gained some amazing friends. They're the only friends that I really have at this point. Um, but my back pain came back. I lost a bunch of weight. There were negative impacts, on my marriage, and I traded that for camaraderie and competition. Um, Eventually, had to give that up and you know focus more on myself and my life off the bike, and got back on protocol in call it 2017, 2018, and I haven't looked back. Um, so when the founders of Redbud reached out to me, I had this just almost hard to believe perfect mix of professional experience, in leadership, in tech, in telemedicine, in healthcare, um, and personal experience of knowing exactly what this stuff can do and why it's not just about the vanity. It's not just about, you know, sex and biceps. Like that's not what hormone replacement therapy is about here with us. Like everything that we do is about enabling people to do what's important to them for longer. Not really a huge fan of the term anti-aging because it's a marketing term. Everything ages. No such thing as anti-aging. It's just the quality in which you age. And the way we see it, everyone is different, but like you're going to have a choice. Do you want to be, 40, 50, 60, 70 and on the decline, or do you want to like maintain, a high level of performance in whatever is important to you for a longer period of time? Or do you want to say age gracefully, which is a term that I don't like. Um, I want to be going and going and going until they put me in the ground.
Yeah. It's almost as if they like got access to your electronic health records and somehow found you that way.
This guy
Uh,
would be perfect.
Yeah.
so going back to what Wellcore is testing for, I think you mentioned, and I've heard the term, is it free testosterone and what's the other type?
Total are the big
Free
two.
and total.
Correct.
Assuming you said it's not one size fits all, so although that under 300 nanograms is sort of the average of, low testosterone, uh, when you're seeing your patients, what are you looking for in order to then uh, recommend a protocol? And maybe can you also tell us about the difference between the free and the total?
Sure. So the free testosterone is the unbound testosterone. And it's actually clinically what's most important because that's the testosterone that actually gets into cells and ha- renders biological influence. And so that's actually what has the biggest impact. Um, so clinically, we focus on those levels, the free testosterone. One thing to make mention of, 300 that 300 nanograms per deciliter of total testosterone is the cutoff that the FDA has decided is what's considered officially hypogonadism, which is the term for low testosterone. Um, Clinically, that's very low. I think any clinician in this space would agree. But yeah, we recognize symptoms in men with levels much higher than that, and the symptoms really are the most important thing when we talk about this. The testosterone deficiency symptoms, as you've alluded to, low sex drive, brain fog, difficulty with sleep, fat gain, loss of strength, loss of muscle mass, loss of body hair. These are all symptoms of testosterone deficiency. And then we correlate that with levels to try to determine if somebody is a good fit.
Got it. Okay. So you mentioned under 300 is sort of like that's clinically low, but even folks with what, like 500 to 700 might be experiencing some of those symptoms that you mentioned.
Absolutely. And again, we want to focus on free testosterone. So free is typically 2 to 3% of total.
Oh, okay. So 2 to
So
3 to
someone could have a
yeah, of your total
yeah,
amount. Okay.
someone could have a total testosterone of 700, but because of some of the other proteins in the blood that bind testosterone, it could be high. Their free could be very, very low, and they could have quite a bit of symptoms. So it really depends on the total number, the free number, symptoms, and then this other protein in the blood called sex hormone binding globulin, which binds testosterone. Some individuals just genetically have a high SHBG, as we call it. Um, and for them, their free testosterone is going to be lower, and that could have a massive impact on where they're at.
Yeah, and I think one of the key takeaways there, John, is and we say it till we're blue in the face, but like everyone is different. When you talk about the numbers, we don't want to boil people down to their numbers because what you might feel at 500 and what I feel at 500 could be completely different. So it's more about the person, how they feel, how they're performing, uh, combined with their numbers to help drive a clinical decision.
Got it. Is there any relationship between sperm count and testosterone?
Yeah, there is. Typically, um, lower sperm counts are associated with lower testosterone.
So, Ryan, in terms of the other biomarkers that you are testing for, how does that then play a role in terms of the treatment plan?
Sure. So testosterone impacts multiple systems of the body, and we didn't think it was optimal or safe to just look at testosterone levels and make clinical decisions based on that. So um, we check cholesterol, which also gives us an idea of someone's risk of developing heart disease in the future, which is the number one killer of everyone in the world. We also check liver function, kidney function, thyroid. All these systems interact with one another. The human body is a complex system. So we did not want to just look at testosterone or other sex hormones. We really wanted to um, get a comprehensive look at someone's health and be able to make recommendations based on that. Like, for example, we'll see a client who has low testosterone levels with symptoms, but he also might have something going on in his liver with high elevations in liver enzymes, or his thyroid might be abnormal, right? So we need to correct some of these other things potentially before starting testosterone, because, like I said, it does interact with multiple systems. So just really about safety and comprehensive assessment for more of a personalized approach.
Got it. And then in terms of the treatment, you mentioned, I think it's 2 to 3 times a week that most of your patients are injecting on the treatment plan versus a cream that's not necessarily the ideal form factor because it can be uncomfortable or less convenient. Can you tell us a little bit more about those?
Sure. So yeah, the injections are twice a week, roughly every 3 to 4 days, done through a short half-inch small insulin needle under the skin with the auto injector device. The testosterone cream is just much more inconvenient. It works just as well in terms of the levels it renders, but you have to apply it twice a day, and you have to be very careful that you don't transfer it to a partner or a child or a product that sits on your bathroom counter. So you have to be diligent to wash your hands afterwards. If you do it before bed, you really should avoid skin contact with anybody in that area where it was applied for at least 4 hours. So we see compliance levels much lower with the creams, and most men find the injections much more convenient and just as effective, if not more effective.
Got it. Uh, we've focused a lot on the upsides of testosterone or, hormone optimization. What are some things that folks could look out for? Are there any cons? Are there any, negative consequences or symptoms that someone might experience from hormone optimization?
Yeah, absolutely. With higher testosterone levels, men who are genetically predetermined to have acne or hair loss. Typically, those will get worse as your testosterone levels go up because testosterone gets converted into another hormone that typically makes those worse. Now, those changes will reverse if you stop the testosterone, and there are easy ways to mitigate those if you're proactive. Like we have some creams that you can start um, if someone has those issues, and they're relatively uncommon in most men, but we know that they're there, and obviously they can be bothersome. So we proactively get ahead of that. Some of the other big side effects are that testosterone increases the production of red blood cells. Now, this is why it's a performance enhancing drug because it increases your oxygen carrying capacity when you're on testosterone. So endurance goes up, cardiovascular performance goes up, but at the same time, when those red blood cell numbers increase, it can also thicken the blood. So,
Mm,
and this can have a big impact on blood pressure, and it can stress the cardiovascular system if somebody already has high blood pressure, say, or already has inflammation in the arteries of the cardiovascular system. And that's another reason why we feel it's important to look at some of those other biomarkers before we prescribe testosterone, because we want to know
mm.
if somebody is at risk for those things. And monitoring blood pressure is very important when you're on testosterone as well for those reasons. Um, Other side effects, those are the big ones. Prostate size does seem to go up in terms of the PSA, the protein that's made by the prostate. That does seem to go up in the short term after starting testosterone. The first 6 weeks to 12 weeks, it tends to trend up. But over time, studies have consistently shown that it trends down. That's a marker of prostate cancer as well. Um, those are the big side effects and things that we look at.
Yeah, and John, when it comes to side effects, things like acne or hair loss that could worsen if you're predispositioned for those things. Um, I'm glad you asked the question. Those are the kind of things that we definitely want to work on, making clear to everyone that considers this. The the non-clinical answer to those questions, because there is definitely separation between church and state here. Like I run, Wellcore Inc. and Ryan is a part of Wellcore Medical Group. So all of our clinicians, they make all the clinical decisions and I have nothing to do with it. And no one on the Wellcore Inc. team has anything to do with it. But when I'm talking to friends and family, I tell them to compare, you know, hormone replacement therapy with the label on anything that's in their medicine cabinet. Turn it around, and there's gonna be some dire warnings on some very common stuff that people take frequently. Um, and there are some people for which HRT is not a good fit because something in their body, something the way that they're made up just says you shouldn't do this. Um, for me, I've been on, as I said earlier, protocol for 15 years. My family, and this isn't meant to be a negative, but I mean, my family is a bit larger, not the healthiest people in the world, and I'm predispositioned for several things like high blood pressure, depression, obesity, cardiovascular issues. I have none of those things. And I'm not gonna, grab a bullhorn and say that, hormone replacement therapy is a cure for any of these. But it's more about, the overall health and wellness impacts and what it enables me to go do has absolutely improved my health over the last 15 years, no doubt about it.
And and John, if I could just, circle back, I skipped over one important side effect, and maybe the most important thing to consider for men, is that when you inject or exogenously take testosterone, it will reduce, your natural production from the testes, as well as your sperm counts, because those signals are no longer coming from the brain. So, in our program, if you are a male who might wanna have children in the future, we don't recommend starting testosterone, the injections or the cream. We have another medication that can increase your natural production of testosterone from the brain that we can offer, but that's something to consider, is your whether or not you wanna have children in the future, your sperm counts, your fertility, very important.
Yeah, I'm glad you I was actually gonna jump in and ask about that. So I'm glad you mentioned that. It's super interesting and definitely worth mentioning. What is the other supplement that that you might recommend or prescription for folks that want to increase their testosterone but want to make sure that they can still have kids?
Yeah, it's a prescription medication called clomiphene, that's the generic name, or Clomid is the brand name. It's been used for decades in, fertility, um, the fertility world, for mostly for women, but it is very effective just as in men at increasing, production of sex hormones.
How about supplementation for folks that might not want to do something that's a prescription? I think I've heard um, Huberman talk about something called Tonga. I think it's called Tongan Ali or Tonga Ali, as well as some other things. I think Shilajit is another herb that might naturally increase testosterone. Do you know anything about those?
Yeah, there's a few. There's a few with pretty good clinical studies behind them. Tungat Ali is one of those. Um, ashwagandha has some good data behind it. Um, and there's a couple others, but really you got to look at the clinical studies. I've never used them personally. I've never recommended those as an alternative on a consistent basis. So I really can't speak clinically to the results, but I can say in the studies I've looked at, yeah, some men will see a 1 or 2 hundred point increase in total testosterone, and it can be a good option for some.
And then how about lifestyle factors? Does healthier eating, better sleep, more physical activity, do those types of impacts impact testosterone?
Absolutely, and I'm so glad you asked that because that's really important. We know that the worse your nutrition is, the worse your sleep is, the worse your exercise is, the worse your stress management is, more likely you are to have to lower testosterone. Um, and when you start testosterone, if you don't improve those other lifestyle factors, you will see some shift in the benefits of going on testosterone. But testosterone really is a force multiplier if you make those other shifts. It is synergistic, the impacts. All the benefits that we see with testosterone are compounded when you improve nutrition at the same time. You get more sleep, you work on stress management, you improve your exercise. So it is not a magic elixir. And I think, because people are talking about it so much, that is a big misconception, is that I'm just going to start testosterone injections and that I don't have to change anything else. I mean, you can do that, but the impact is gonna be minimal compared to if you were to improve some of the other, lifestyle behaviors.
Jason, and as a given that from a business model perspective, you have these assessments, you're learning about your patients in order, and then to be able to recommend, these treatments or not. How do you make sure that the incentives are aligned? Where if someone might benefit from those lifestyle factors first before they're given sort of a treatment plan? Is that sort of part of your customer journey in order for folks to understand that option and make sure they're not maybe pushed into, not pushed, but like nudged into something that's a little bit more, um, sounds to me intense, but maybe that's not the right word, a little bit more of like a uh, immersive experience?
Yeah, so you heard me mention the separation of church and state earlier, where you've got Wellcore Inc. and Wellcore Medical Group. Uh, our clinicians that work under Wellcore Medical Group are free to practice medicine. That means get to know each individual patient, figure out where they stand, what their goals are, what needs to be improved, and make a decision. None of our clinicians are incentivized in any way to put somebody on a Wellcore hormone replacement therapy program. They're going to have a face-to-face conversation just like we're having. And, it could be Ryan, it could be any number of our clinicians that we have around the country that have been trained in what we call the Wellcore way. They're going to advise that person to make the decisions to get to where it is that they want to go. Um, you know, I I used to sell supplements. I was a supplement guy. I've been in the gym. I was a 7 day a weeker for the longest period of time. And supplements have their place. Diet obviously has its place, and exercise routines do as well. My personal opinion on hormone replacement therapy for men and women is that it's this bedrock, it's this foundation of overall health and wellness that could enable you to even want to make those additional improvements, because you could be so far, in the gutter that optimizing your hormones gets you off the couch. You could start working out, you could start being more active, and it doesn't just have to be about fitness. You could start performing in the boardroom, at work. Um, and then after that, it's just a domino effect. I mean, yeah, improve your diet too. Um, you know, and there's no diet that's a one size fits all either. Um, if you're not getting, macro and micronutrients from your diet, then yeah, look at nutritional supplementation. Um, and to Ryan's point, you'll see that there's just a compounding effect. And my story is a bit extreme. Lost the ability to walk, got it back, became an athlete again. Everybody's got their own story and their own why.
I have a couple more questions here and then also want listeners to be able to get an idea of who you both are. Obviously, you've had your personal stories, but I think it's nice to get just a little bit of added color and context on the still on the Wellcore side. Something that came up with another functional doctor I was speaking to recently, and I haven't dug very deep into this, is this something else you might be able to get from the blood, DHEA. Um, Ryan, can you talk us through that? Because I've heard that that's sometimes optimized as a way to increase testosterone levels.
Yeah, great question. I'm glad you brought it up. We actually look at DHEAS. That is the biomarker in the blood that we actually look at that. And so it is a hormone released from the adrenal glands that sit above the kidneys that goes on to make the sex hormones as well as cortisol. So it declines with age, plays a huge role in robust sex hormones like testosterone, also plays a big role in the stress response via cortisol. And it plays a big role in the immune system as well. So we check that hormone. And so clinically, if levels are low in females and you supplement that, we do see a clinically significant increase in testosterone. For men, not so much. So it's still important that you have a robust level for both males and females. But if a male has low testosterone levels or suboptimal with symptoms and you start them on DHEA, it is, in my experience, pretty uncommon to see their level increase so much that was enough to remove their symptoms. But in females, it actually can be quite significant.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying that. And then I was thinking as you were talking through some of the side effects or things to be conscientious about. This idea of like what you might hear someone say, like, "Oh, he has too much testosterone." as someone who's like, you know, maybe angry or short tempered. Is that something that we just say in culture? Does that have? Is there actually a relationship between someone being more irritable and their testosterone?
Yeah. So the roid rage misconception. So it's most common that men who have low testosterone levels are suboptimal, and they start it. Their mood actually stabilizes or regulates or improves. That's the typical trend that we see. But
So say that again in a slightly different way. Is when it gets low is when there could be negative effect. Yeah,
yeah,
you're
absolutely,
yeah.
mood dysregulation, more irritable, big swings, high highs, low lows, definitely, and we tend to see that really steady out when testosterone levels are optimized and improved. Um, Oh, I was gonna say that testosterone has a huge role in the brain in such a way that it impacts motivation and drive and assertiveness. So what we often see is if somebody is, a very assertive or, I don't how do I say, is not a nice person in general, they can be a little bit more firm in their stance as testosterone increases. But like I said, the most common pattern we see is that mood stabilizes and improves, and just overall well-being improves as those testosterone levels come up. Now, I will as a caveat though, um, the testosterone that we use in our program and most clinicians are using throughout the United States is almost identical to the natural testosterone produced in our body. It's what we consider bioidentical or as close to it as possible. There are a whole slew of synthetic anabolic steroids that do similar things but are much more potent. You see this commonly in the bodybuilding world. They're taking multiple hormones and synthetic steroids at once. Um, that is a whole nother world of what that can impact in terms of your mood, and your brain. So, this is very different. These doses we're doing are, significantly lower. Those doses are gonna be, 5, 10x what we're doing. And so that's a different world, and I think that's a lot of where the roid rage misconceptions come from.
Yeah, and I'm gonna chime in. So what Ryan closed there with, the fact that there are anabolic steroids and people sort of doing their own medicine, gym medicine, bro science, whatever you want to call it. Um, what we do in hormone, clinicians who practice hormone replacement therapy, it's a specialty. It's not as well recognized as something like orthopedic surgery or, someone who is a cardiologist. And something that I tell, friends and family, and the word that I try to spread is if you're going to consider or look at hormone replacement therapy, work with a clinician or a group that practices this as their specialty. They've studied it, they do it. They, there's continuing education and there's new studies coming out all the time. And I've been in the healthcare space for a while and I've worked with doctors that are just so set in their ways in their specialty that they're kind of just going through the motions every day. Um, if you asked one of them about hormone replacement therapy, they're going to tell you what they read or heard last, which could be 25 years old. Things have changed a lot.
Yeah, if there was to round out this part of the conversation, if listeners wanted to go have a takeaway and they wanted to just understand generally how to think about hormones and how hormones impact their health, what would you say? Because it's so interesting that it's now entering the conversation around health and wellness in a more mainstream way, but it is such an impactful part of how we operate mentally and physically.
Yeah. I know what I would say about that. So, hormone replacement therapy and the medications that are employed, some of them fit in the category of steroid. And steroid has become a dirty word when in reality, steroids are just members of the lipid family within our body. And the steroids that we're talking about are the sex hormones, testosterone, estrogen. cholesterol is a steroid. So it's got this stigma, and it's surrounded by fear, uncertainty, and doubt from um, the stories that have been told, or the stories that we've heard over the years. But there were also studies that were done in the late 90s and early 2000s. It just painted a poor picture. But those studies have been all but debunked. We've got a library of over 130 studies, I think 45 to 50 of which are focused on, testosterone and estrogen and progesterone and estradiol. Um, the, the fear will eventually go away when people get the latest, most up to date information. And we're seeing now, we know this, when the story we're trying to tell is that optimized hormones is a foundational element of overall health and wellness. And it's not just about the vanity. Ryan mentioned this earlier. One of the benefits is cardiovascular resiliency. There are studies that suggest this could be the number one weapon to fight heart disease, which is the number one killer of men and women all over the world. So I would just urge people to give it a try. And by it, I mean do the blood test. Uh, get one of the assessment kits and talk to a doctor who specializes in this, that's licensed in this, and hear what they have to say.
And I'll just add, so, your John, your question about how can people research this more online? There's a lot of scary stuff online, and I think it's worth touching on the story of HRT for men. Jason mentioned that there were some studies done a decade or two ago. They were right around 2010, 2013, 2014. A few studies were done. They were not randomized controlled trials. They were observational studies, right? So the randomized controlled trials, the gold standard for clinical research. These were observational studies that looked at the rates of cardiovascular events, heart attacks, strokes in people who received testosterone prescriptions. Those studies were full of gross data mismanagement, statistical errors, um, design flaws. I mean, in one of those studies, 10% of the participants were women. I mean, these were really poorly done studies. And then in 2015, a group petitioned the FDA to put a black box warning for an increased risk of cardiovascular events on testosterone prescriptions, which still stands today. Now, since then, those studies have, I don't know how they haven't been retracted, but they certainly have been debunked and better studies have been done. And those claims and those conclusions have pretty much been thrown out the window by practicing clinicians and people who look at this research continuously. And the story for the female space of HRT is even more interesting and even more frustrating. Um, but we can dive into that maybe another time.
Yeah. Would love to do a round two on that. Um, thank you. Thank you both for nuanced and deep dive conversation on all things hormone replacement. I like to end my podcasts with a little rapid fire, if you're up for it, just so folks could get a little bit of additional context on who you both are as leaders and humans. Um, would you be up for that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
All right, great. Sometimes it requires a little bit more thought, but if we can go quicker on this, I know I want to let you both go because you've been gracious with your time already. We've gone over. Is there a book you've recommended the most, reread multiple times, or one that has just left a lasting impact on you?
You want me to go first with each question real
Go for it.
fast?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Team of Teams, Stanley McChrystal.
Attached. Amir Levine, Rachel Heller.
Great. Favorite product at Trader Joe's or another CPG product that you love? And I know that one might be funny, and you might have a little bit of conflict of interest because you guys have Red Bud.
I I could fly the flag. I love Chetties. I absolutely love them.
Yeah, I love them so much. Go ahead.
Chetties. It's a Redbud brand. Like, we work with the guys. It's like a healthy pure Cheez It, like a sustainable, healthy Cheez It, and they're so good.
And it's made from regenerative farming, which is actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
I can't actually buy them anymore because they don't last. They last like a day.
Yeah, eat a whole
I've made a
box.
rule.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Aside from that, I would probably say, Power Crunch protein bars.
Yeah, vanilla or chocolate?
My favorite flavor is the, peanut butter cream.
Alright.
Creme, I mean.
Power bar,
Creme.
kicking it old school.
It's called Power Crunch is the company,
Oh,
but
Yeah.
it
Power
is a
Crunch.
protein bar.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like a
Yeah,
waffle.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Fun fact or, veteran tip, freeze those things, put them in the freezer.
done.
So much better.
I do that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna check out Cheddy's too, and hopefully see your friends at Expo West. Purchase under $200 that's provided the most value to you that you made maybe in the last 6 months.
My Ninja coffee maker that replaced a really nice super automatic, and I'm okay with that.
Nice. I would say a chuck it, which if you have a dog who likes to play fetch, you know what a chuck it is. It's a little lever arm that can throws a rubber ball really far.
I've never Ninja coffee maker. Oh, it's a pretty regular coffee maker.
It's an old school, like, drip pot, like, it's not instant anything.
That's a trip.
Yeah.
Signature dish or favorite thing to cook.
Um, a beef tenderloin that I cut myself that's about that thick.
Uh, Probably one of my favorite things to cook. I like breakfast food, so it's like a breakfast quesadilla. It's got eggs and sausage or ham or turkey and salsa and cheese, and I put it between 2 low carb tortillas, and it's put it on the stove. It's so good.
Nice.
Getting me hungry. One thing you're both grateful for today.
Um, as cliche as it might sound, friends and family, most of them are still here, and I get to see them frequently.
I would say my dog. She's 1 year, German short-haired pointer. She brings a tremendous amount of joy to me every day.
Amazing. Best piece of advice you've ever received.
Don't sweat the small things.
Not sure this is the best advice, but it stuck with me. My grandfather told me once, "Don't make money off friends," and I've remembered that for a long time.
I like that one. Um, Guilty pleasure.
Chocolate.
Power Crunch protein bars.
Chocolate margaritas. Chocolate
This
margaritas.
guy's a
Probably.
real biohacker, healthy guy. Is he's
I mean, I got
two
my
for
vices,
one,
but
two
that's
for one answers, and it's pretty clean guilty pleasure.
actually, yeah, probably pizza. Probably pizza. Yeah,
What's the best
pizza.
pizza spot in Austin?
Uh-oh.
Oh, do we have another 40 minutes? 50?
Is this a big conversation? I've heard that the pizza there
It
is
is
not
amongst
that
my
good.
friends. It is amongst my friends.
New York over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. LA is like that
I
too.
would, I would say Home Slice is up there. Um, yeah, Pine House Pizza is probably my close second. Yeah, or maybe Pine House or Home Slice.
PHB.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Our COO put together our offsite in Austin, and he doesn't eat carbs, so there is no pizza, only barbecue. Who do you look up to and why?
Oof. Um, not to borrow from previous answers, but, like, I've got some really close friends that I actually look up to, as odd as that might sound.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Oh my gosh. I'm in a men's group, and we meet, every week or so, and some of the guys in there, I really, really admire, and they inspire me every time we talk. Shout out to the Alliance.
Love that. Favorite podcasts or podcast episodes, any that have left a lasting impact on you?
Um, I don't know if this counts as a podcast. It comes through on my podcast app, but, like, I'm a huge nerd with TED Talks, because I don't like to get stuck in one. like category, and one that stuck with me was Angela Duckworth, where she talked about grit as a characteristic, and that goes all the way back to like 2013 when I heard that one.
Yeah, I've heard that's a good one. This is easy for me. Definitely favorite podcast is The Drive, Peter Attia's podcast on longevity and kind of personalized health medicine.
But yeah, you
Good
want
deal.
your clinical team to be listening to that. Are you a member?
Yeah, sure am.
Cool.
Yep.
And then last one, or last two, actually, I'm going to add one more in there. Create one. What is your least favorite piece of health advice?
Anything that is a diet that's supposed to work for everybody. Like I eat what I like.
Yeah, I was thinking it was
Happiness is more important.
something around nutrition. Yeah, anyone who's a zealot at, this is the diet for everybody. I can't really think of one that tops that. Yeah.
And then maybe on the other side of that coin, maybe outside of, I don't know if you'd say this is crazy, but the craziest or most out there thing you do to optimize your well-being.
Crazy to other people, but
Mhm.
not me. I keep my bedroom at 62 degrees at night, and I also have a mattress that regulates its temperature, and it's ice cold too. I have to shiver. I have to be, like, right on the verge of shivering to go to sleep.
I would say I've done a lot of stuff, but now I think I've tamed it down a bit over the years. I would most people would probably just say how it's my take on sleep. Like if you interfere with my sleep on a consistent basis, like I take it as like a personal insult. Like it has such an impact on my health
You still
and
have a
well being.
dog.
I do. But she's way cuter than anyone else, so she gets a pass. Uh, but yeah, I have a chili pad too. I put blue blockers on. I take some sleep supplements. That's probably around sleep.
I like a good cryotherapy session or an ice bath.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I had, whatever 40K, I'd probably put a cryo tank in my place.
All right. Well, let's take Wellcore to the moon, and maybe we'll get one for you
To the moon.
That'd be great.
guys. This has been a lot of fun. I've learned a lot, and I think we want to do a quick shout out just to the assessments. Where can folks learn more about you and Wellcore, and anything else you'd like to mention before we sign off today?
Yeah, you can learn everything about us at teamwellcore.com. And, in, meeting you, John, and getting the invite to the June podcast, uh, for all the folks that make it this far, um, we wanted to offer up that assessment kit, for $1. So if you just use a coupon code June, JOON, you'll get the assessment kit for $1. We typically sell them for 200 bucks. Street value on the device and the blood test that you're gonna have and even the consultation, there's 6 or $700 of value hiding in there.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I just did the test, and I'm excited to meet my clinician. Maybe it'll be Ryan, in order to go over my results. And it is relatively painless. It looks intimidating, but after you look at it and go through it, it really is nothing. And pretty cool to do that at home. At least for me, it was. I was like, wow, you can do a lot at home now. Thank you again, guys. This was a lot of fun. Appreciate you going a little bit over, and check out Wellcore if you haven't already.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.